Hello class, Mr. Guarino here. In this video, I'm going to illustrate how to do a frame-by-frame animation. I like to use frame-by-frame animations for embedding a symbol into another animation. So the goal here is to make a frame-by-frame animation of a bird with flapping wings. So later I can actually use that bird with its flapping wings to fly around some landscape and look like a real bird flying around because he's flapping his wings. So I have 4 frames in this animation. And by the way, you could draw all this stuff, but I certainly didn't. I got it from the internet. Okay, so here's 4 frames, and I put them together. And so if I was to play this by hitting Control Enter, it looks like this. And then here's another one I did. The difference between this one, Bird 4, it has 4 frames, and I made it 10 frames per second. This one, because it has 9 frames, I made it 15 frames per second. If you only have 4 frames and you do it at like 30 frames per second, the bird's flapping its wings really, really fast. So you could adjust the frames per second so it looks more normal. Okay, so here's my 9 different frames, and if I play this one, and the only difference really is, the more frames you have, the smoother it looks, but I think you can tell with the 4 frames it doesn't look bad. By the way, I think most people are working with, their timeline, something like this, as far as how wide the frames are, but for this frame-by-frame animation that's only going a few frames, I made it wider so you can see what I'm working on. So this is the main goal. But now, how did I go about doing that? Well, first I had to look on the internet and find some birds. And so what I searched for was bird flap transparent sprite sheet. A sprite sheet is a sheet of the same sort of character in multiple different positions, and so you could blend them together to make an animation. And so when you just search for this, you'll see this is like one of the first ones that popped up. It's actually not the file I downloaded because it looks a little different. Okay, and then here's one that looks very similar to one that I downloaded. And so you would just click on here. Here's the 4 birds. I always like to right click and say copy image address and then open a new tab, paste that in and go, so I know I have just the image, not some interactive website thing going on. So it's just an image. You can see right here it says JPEG at the end, JPG. So yeah, no transparency, so we're going to have to do a little Photoshop work to make it transparent. So the first thing I'm going to do is right click, save image as, and I'm going to save it to my shortcut folder in my Google Drive. I made a folder called Bird because this project has quite a few things going on in it, so let me save it there. Here you can see the one that I did previously, and now we got these flying tree sparrow. This was flying European whatever. So I'm going to save that, and then I'm going to go to that folder, find that file, right click on it, say open with Photoshop. If Photoshop's not on your list for a JPEG, go to choose another app. If it doesn't, it might pop up here. If it doesn't, you can always go to more apps, and then eventually you're going to see it there. Choose it. Don't say always use this app because you don't always want to edit JPEG files. Sometimes you just want to look at them, so I would leave this unchecked and then say OK. And then here's your file. Notice it's got some words in the center here, but I don't care about that because we're only going to be using the bird part, right? And so the first thing I like to do is not mess with the background layer. So I like to, while that's selected, press Ctrl J. That stands for jump the layer. By the way, the background layer, the word background's italics and it's got a lock here, so you really can't change anything on this layer unless you rename it. So rather than rename it, I just make a copy of it, a jump layer. So layer 1. And then I know I'm going to try and go for transparency. So immediately I'm going to add a new layer, drag it in between those two. I'm going to look at this and say, I don't see any red or hot pink in here. So I'm going to color this layer, making sure this layer is selected, layer 2. In fact, let's name that. Let's name this pink. Let's name this 4 birds. Okay, so now I'm on the pink layer. I'll turn off the other ones. You can see I already had pink sort of selected because I did this just before. Go to my bucket tool, click on here, and then turn this layer back on. And I want to get rid of this blue. I want to make it transparent. And so I'm going to click on my magic wand. And up here there's a tolerance. If I click now in the blue, oh, and I did something wrong. Most common mistake in Photoshop. I'm actually selecting the layer of pink, and so I got the whole layer because what I really did was click inside this pink and select all the pink, which is dumb. So I'm going to press Ctrl D to deselect. By turning this layer on with the eyeball, all I've done is turn it on. I haven't selected it, but I still have to click here. Now if I click in here with the blue, you'll see it did a pretty good job of picking just the blue stuff and not any of the bird. Because there's nothing in the bird that's blue, so it distinguished pretty well between the dissimilar colors. If you have a hard time selecting, you can change the tolerance up here. So if I make it a 5, let's see what happens. You can see it doesn't go quite as close to the bird because, and in fact, it's even going around the little words over here. Let me zoom in. And the reason why it's doing that is with that tolerance, it's being more restrictive. So let me deselect that and put this instead of 5. Let's put it up to 85. And now click on the blue. And now you can see it actually selects more things. And so the tolerance I had it on before was actually good. So 50 worked pretty good, I think. So you might have, you might have to fool around with that. So there you can see it's pretty good. It looks like it got a little piece of the bird over here and over there. So, I mean, again, you could fiddle with it. Maybe make it 40. That looks pretty good. So now if I zoom back out and hit delete on my keyboard, you'll see that it deleted everything, all the blue. You could have the checkerboard on, but I like having the pink or some color that really stands out because the checkerboard around the edges here, sometimes it could be part of the bird and it's a little hard to see. Let me deselect, because just some of that gray stuff matches up with almost with the color of the bird. But the pink, that stands out really well. And you can see a little jaggedy here, but I don't think we're going to notice this when the bird's flapping its wings. So I think that's pretty good. So let me zoom out and then making sure I'm still on this layer. Click here, hit delete, click here, hit delete, and click here and hit delete. So now I have 4 transparent birds, or the same bird in 4 different positions. So now I'm going to hit Ctrl D to deselect, and I kind of want to select a rectangle around here. So I'm going to go to my select tool, just a rectangular marquee. You can actually set sizes up here. Usually they're blank, but I put in some sizes before because I knew that would work good to give me a nice rectangle. So I'm going to hit that, and now you can copy it, make a new layer, and paste it, or when you press Ctrl J, it jumps a layer. If you only have something, if you have part of a layer selected, and you press Ctrl J, it only jumps the selection. So Ctrl J, and you can see I now have this new layer, layer 1, with just the top right bird on it. So let me turn this back on, not only turn it on, but select it, and then go and do my top left one. Ctrl J, and then the bottom left one. See, when you set the numbers of the marquee tool, you don't have to draw the rectangle. It's automatically there because it's going to be the size you specified. Ctrl J. Oops, I did a bad thing. I'm trying to jump a layer. I'm trying to jump this layer, but what I just selected, there's nothing on that layer in the lower left corner because I have to go back to this layer. Control J. And then go back to this layer again and do my lower right one. Control J. So now I have 4 layers. So if I want, I could name these layers. I could do like top right, top left, or maybe I just want to call it bird 1, bird 2, bird 3, bird BIRD 4. I know how to spell. My fingers hit too many keys at once. Okay, so then let's save this. Right now it's saved as, it's only a JPEG that we imported, so we need to save it as a Photoshop file. So save as, save on your computer, go to that same folder, your shortcut folder, and then I made a folder called Bird. Might be a good idea for you to do, make another folder for this project, because you'll have a few files in here. And then over here we're just going to name it Bird 4. Distinguished from the one I already did because I put my name in the front of that one just to make sure I didn't go over it when I did this. So save that. Over here just say OK. And then I'll just close this out without closing out Photoshop because I'm going to use it again. So let me just close it out over here, meaning just the file I have open. And then minimize this. And then minimize this. And now I'm going to go close out these two. And I'm going to create new in Adobe Animate now here. And I don't really need it this big. It's just a little bird flying across the screen. So, I mean, I can leave it on this selection and just type in my own numbers. And if you remember, I think it was 350 by 300 on the marquee tool. So that should be good. Let's make it a little bigger. Make it 400 width by 350 height. And I know I'm going to change the frame rate later. I'll just leave it at 30 for now. Great. Now we do want the background to be transparent. So click on the stage, choose transparent. And then we need to import that file. File, import to library. And it was Bird 4 Photoshop. And it says, hey, do you want to import all these layers? I mean, you don't need the pink, you don't need this, but I mean, it's also not a big deal if you have them. And then leave everything the way it is and just say import. Of course, it didn't do anything other than put all that stuff in a library. Here's the actual just Photoshop file, and then here's all the different layers. So we want to have 4 frames. So right now I have just this one empty frame. So I'm going to click here and press F7 for a blank one, F7 for another blank one, and out to frame 4, F7, another blank one. Go back to frame 1, drag on the first bird, go to frame 2, drag on bird 2, go to frame 3, drag on bird 3. That's why I named them, so I wouldn't like forget where I was at. 4, frame 4, bird 4 on frame 4. Makes sense, right? Now, when I move the playhead, you can see he's kind of jumpy. He's jumping all over the place. Which, I guess when a bird flies, they do kind of do that, but that's not really what I wanted. I wanted it a little smoother. So there's a way you can fix that. This button over here is onion skinning. What it does is it kind of shows you a shadow of the other frames. If you have a lot of them, it can get very busy and you might not be able to tell what you're looking at. So let's turn that off for now. The first one, I'm going to try and center the first one. Pretty much. Doesn't have to be perfect. And you can use your arrow keys on your keyboard for a little bit finer adjustment. And then I'm going to go out to frame 2. Put on my onion skinning. But I don't want to see all 4 frames. I just want to see 2. So here's frame 2. And back there is the bluish purple shadowy thing. That's frame 1. So I'm going to try and drag the beak and the body to be sort of overlapping. And I'm going to drag this over to frame 3. Again, I don't want to see frame 1 anymore because it's getting a little too busy for me. So I'll just shorten my onion skinning to be only frames 2 and 3. And then I'll drag the image that's on frame 3 closer to being on top of frame 2. And then the last one would be to drag it over to frame 4. And notice how it kind of went, the onion skinning went with me that time because it basically kind of knows I only want to look at 2 at a time. And so let me put this over here, maybe use my keyboard a little. Alright, so that should look good. I'll turn off the onion skinning, and now you can see it looks smoother. Doesn't have to be perfect, because I mean, when a bird flaps its wings, its body does move somewhat. If you want to see it in the preview here, and have it play over and over, you can loop it. Right now it's only going to loop to frame 1, 2, and 3, so let me drag this out to frame 4. Press play, and you can see, yeah, he's flapping kind of quick. So it says over here 30 frames per second, but you can't change it here. What you have to do is go back to properties of your entire project. So if this is clicked, you get properties of the bird. So click the, what they call the pasteboard, everything that's outside the stage. And then you'll see here you can change this from 30. Let's just try 10. And now let's play it. So that looks a little better. If you want it faster, make it faster. You want it slower, make it slower. And then if you want to, well, before we play it, let's save it. So we'll go save as, and we'll call it bird 4, and click save, and do Control Enter, and this is how it looks on a web page. Okay, but now some people are going to say, alright, I did that, but I'm having a little trouble. What's the trouble? Well, the image I got doesn't really want to work. So let's go over to, I don't feel like downloading another one, but this file right here that I had downloaded previously, this is a nice one. It's got 9 birds in it. Say, oh gee, I like that one. It'd probably be smoother, it's a little cooler, I like the bird, I want to use that. Okay, fine. So you right click on it and you go to Open with Photoshop, and you notice it doesn't say background over here, it says index. And if I click on this, I can't double click it and change the name. I can't Control J and jump the layer. It's basically, it's locked. It's a protected file. Whoever put this on the internet, they don't want you to use it. Well, I kind of feel bad, but not too bad, we're going to use it anyway. So what you can do is, if you double click on it, and you see it right here, if you use this program that comes with Windows called Snip and Sketch, click there, say New, come to the top left, click and drag, alright, now you have the image and it's yours. You can do whatever you want with it. So I'm going to save it, not to my downloads, go to my shortcut folder, and bird. You can see I already had to do that before, screenshot, so I'm taking a different screenshot. I'll close that out. Close this out. Here's the screenshot I just did. So I'm going to open that in Photoshop. And now you can see it no longer says index, not locked. I can do whatever I want with it. And so I could probably make this whole thing transparent in one shot, because right now it's a real checkerboard because I did a screenshot. So let's do like maybe a blue background to show that where the transparency is. So add a new layer, drag it underneath. Should have jumped this one first, so let's jump it. Layer 1 copy, put this in between them. This layer we're going to paint or fill in with the bucket tool. With I like a little lighter. That looks good. With this blue, turn this back on. Click on this layer 1 copy. What are we going to name it? 9 birds. And then I could use the magic wand. The tolerance is 40. If I click in a white checkbox, it looks like it did a pretty good job at 40. So if I hit delete, yeah, that looks pretty darn good. Control D to deselect, and then it's going to be the same process. So this is if you have any trouble with your image that you get, and it being locked or it's transparent. It looks like it's transparent, but the checkerboard is an actual checkerboard. You can still get rid of it. You can make it transparent. And now we're back to where we were with the 4 birds. All I need to do is go to my marquee tool. I got it 350 by 300. Well, that's a little big for this one because I'm getting more of the bird, right? So, I don't know. Fiddle with it, right? Make it 250 by, I don't know, 200. Press Control D to deselect and then choose again. Now that's kind of close. I don't know, maybe some of these other ones the bird's not going to fit. So that might not be good. Let me Control D. So maybe make this 300 and make this 250. Let's see. Oops. Still no good. I don't know. 275. There we go. So a nice rectangle. And if you don't like using rectangles, if you want to just say normal, then you can drag it out every time. And then they'll just be all different sizes, which really shouldn't matter when you're bringing into Adobe Animate, as long as you make your stage bigger than the rectangles you did. Right, so when you do this, you click and drag around it, Control J. You get a layer with just the one bird at the top right. Make sure you click back on this layer. I like having the blue on. I don't know why. Drag around this one. Control J. And then you'll just have 9 layers, which you can bring into Adobe Animate. Put them one at a time. However many layers you have, that's how many frames you'll have. Just the frame rate so it looks right. Use your onion skinning to line them up. And then you have a nice frame by frame animation. And be ready for the next assignment using that frame by frame animation in an animation. Very good. Thank you.